What's up, team? I'm hybrid nutrition coach Sam Petrich, as well as the HWPO Assistant coach, here with Matt, obviously. Today we're going to talk about some nutrition stuff that Matt has experienced throughout his career. And the first thing that we kind of want to talk about is how your nutrition has changed from your first year in CrossFit to your last year in CrossFit, and then kind of how it's progressed since you've retired.
Yeah, you know, when I first started, I literally ate just basically for like survival, you know, like eating for performance was the last thing. You know, I was a full-time college student. I was going for an engineering degree. So training was, 90 minutes a day, 2 hours a day, maybe.
Right.
And the rest of the time was at school, in the library. So it was whatever was on hand and quick. And behind the library, there was a Chinese food truck and a pizza truck, and pizza was $1 a slice. So $5 kind of fed you for the day. And that was just like, I would just gorge myself 1, maybe 2 meals a day. And my body composition reflected it.
Right.
I remember, I think it was like a 3-month or 4-month span. I did one competition and I weighed in at 169. And then the next competition, I weighed 203.
Wow.
And it was just like the semester was heavy. I lived at the school and like just junk food just because it filled you up.
And did you notice though in that time, like how much heavier you were for your movements, right? Like gymnastics and stuff?
Yeah, that was where it really showed, was like on ring muscle ups.
Right.
I'm basically, none of that weight is going to muscle or anything useful. And so it literally felt like I was just doing ring muscle ups with a weight vest on, and anything over like big sets of chest to bar, just boom,
rip your
tear.
hands. Yeah.
And it's like I could always tell as soon as my body weight broke 200 and then for me I was like, oh, I'm too heavy, I need to cut down the weight. And I did that just by not eating. It wasn't even like I changed what I ate. It was just like
cut everything out.
Just I stopped eating. You're hungry for a day, and then you kind of go into this like dormant state and just dwindle away.
Right.
But then my weightlifting would plummet. So I went from that extreme of just food trucks, junk food, huge weight fluctuations, to just eating consistently throughout the day. It still wasn't great food, but I was eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that allowed my body weight to at least level out and stay consistent. It allowed my energy to stay consistent, but it still wasn't helping my performance. It wasn't benefiting in any way. And then by the end of my career, once it was like, okay, I'm all in on this, I'm not going to leave my diet up to a what if. That's when, started working with some people, got the correct information. I had Sammy on my team just like really helping out and contributing, and she was the one that cooked all of my food.
Which helps a ton, especially with what you're doing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And that allowed my body weight to stay level, allowed my energy to stay level. But then it was also the food was helping my performance. I was eating different things at different times for different training sessions. Since then, when I first retired, it was kind of vacation mode. Of just, I still enjoy the feeling of being hungry. Because I just went so long of just stuffing myself, force feeding myself just to get enough calories in. So when I had an opportunity to be hungry, I took it. But now that I'm getting back into, training regularly, really focusing on my health, my fitness, my energy levels throughout the day, because I have long days again. Now it's, okay, let's do some meal prepping. Let's start paying attention to how much of different foods I'm eating and when I'm eating.
And I think that's an issue that a lot of people have, is they don't understand that eating consistently throughout the day will make it so you don't have those highs and lows, especially if you're training at a high level, right? And so that's something that, like you said, is that you learned how to consistently eat so that you wouldn't feel like super low in energy, right? And that's you don't want that feeling when you're training, especially with everything else that most people have going on in life. So having yourself like set up for success and knowing breakfast, I have to eat this. I have to have this shake at this time. Like just having a plan.
Yeah, like
helped.
even something as simple as when I was training for the games, they're very, very long training sessions to the point that even if you have a meal right before you go in, which I wasn't because I had my meals, I gave myself enough time to, digest it, get comfortable with it before training. But even if I had a meal right before, I'm hungry before the session's over. Right. So it's either preparing snacks to have in the gym that I can take down in between workouts or in between sets, or having a carb shake for immediately after or a protein shake to sip on during, just so I'm giving myself some fuel to get me through that one single session.
Right. Yeah, and like, so you say you were taking in a protein shake and that kind of stuff. What specifically, because a lot of people have issues with eating certain things before they work out, right? Like you don't want to eat a high volume meal right before you work out because then you feel bloated and you just know that feeling of you're like, I ate way too much.
For me, it wasn't even a feeling like being bloated. It was literally just the volume sitting in my stomach. Yeah. And now have that volume and go do 100 GHDs.
It's not
going to work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's why I think, like for most of us, it's like simple carbs that are easy to digest. And like for me specifically, I know it's like when I compete, it's applesauces, like smoothies, like simple things that I know aren't gonna like be stuck sitting right here, and that you're ultimately like thinking about that when you should be able to be all in on your workout.
Yeah, I think talking about how I ate during competition or in that like peak training for the games, you have to keep in mind that I was training to perform. I didn't care about my personal health or how I looked or anything. As long as I was performing, didn't care about anything else. So I'm taking down just like these condensed Gatorade shakes just for that quick burning fuel. As soon as I stopped competing, I don't think I've had Gatorade since because I'm more concerned about my personal health, so I'm not taking in this huge dose of sugar all through the day.
Understanding that you're not working out for 5 or 6 hours anymore every day, right? Like that was your life, and now it's kind of changed directions a little bit, but you're still aware of what you're taking in at least, right? So have you been able to keep those, like, I would say healthier habits now, as far as like, you talked about you're still paying attention, like protein shakes and that kind of stuff. Like, do you still, it's hard when you've done it for so long to then all of a sudden you like stop realizing like, oh, I'm eating this much per serving, or like, how are you still, like?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of things that were easy changes, and I'm going just for, I'm just looking for bang for the buck strategy. So I'm sure that what I'm doing is not the absolute optimal plan.
Right, but it works for you.
But for the amount of effort I'm putting in, I'm seeing phenomenal results because I have very little time to dedicate to meal prepping or eating during the day. It's like I am from one thing to the next all day long. And so it's really simple things. I stopped drinking anything with sugar. That was number one. And like the body composition change I saw just from that was crazy. Like just from cutting out sugar, when I took a couple months off after my last games, I dropped 20 pounds.
Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, like it was a big chunk.
Those liquid calories.
Yeah, they add up. But that's why I took them in when I was training. Liquid calories, it was super dense. So I mean, just like no sugar. My meal prep is super simple. Rice, chicken thighs, and a side of vegetables. And I cook them all plain. And so then when I'm busy, my stomach rumbles, I'm not having to wait 20 minutes to throw something together or plan something. Grab one of those, heat it up, and then depending on what time of day it is, what mood I'm in, I can just put different flavor hot sauce on it or whatever topping. So I feel like I have a bunch of variety, but I always have a stack of those just pre-made Tupperware containers, so it keeps the meat, the rice, the vegetable all separate, so it's not getting soggy. Protein shake as soon as I'm done working out. I just make it a habit that as soon as I'm done working out, I get home and it just boom, protein in the shaker and mix it up and I'm good to go. And then I try not to eat for probably 30 minutes after that protein shake, because I know for myself, it's like when I'm hungry, I want just this heaping plate of food. And then once I'm halfway through, I'm like, that was probably enough. But it's in front of me.
I gotta finish this.
So I just keep telling myself, I'm like, it's an option. You can eat more later. But if in 30 minutes you still want more, you can have more.
Right.
But I have that protein shake, and then it's like, okay, I'll wait 30 minutes. In the moment, I'm like, I know I want more food.
Right.
But then 30 minutes later, I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good for a little while. So trying to set up, strategies or, blockers like that of like, I'm not restricting myself from anything, but I'm just like, wait 30 minutes.
Right.
Go take a shower, and if you want food after that, you can have it.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is we talk about like consistency throughout the day. Like you probably know if you're outside and you like are on the tractor all day long and you don't eat all day, then at night you're like, oh, I need everything. Like kind of how you talked about, I'm gonna crush this, I'm gonna crush this, I'm gonna crush this. Whereas if you set yourself up and you at least like have breakfast and lunch and then probably like a snack when you're on, I don't know, riding the pit bike or whatever you're doing, like and some jerky or something, you got all these activities. You need like quick, simple snacks,
so kind
right?
of something you touched on there is like if I'm outside working all day, and I come in and I have a huge Tupperware of rice, a huge Tupperware of chicken, and then one of vegetables, and I have to make my own plate, I'm going to absolutely gorge this huge portion. But with the pre-separated Tupperwares, it's like, well, I don't want to heat up 2 at once. So I'll heat up 1, and then I tell I'm like, if you still want another one after, you can have another one.
Right.
But it's stopping me from just like those unneeded extra size portions when it's already pre-separated.
Right.
And it takes no extra effort.
Exactly.
It's like you already made the pot of rice. Now just put 6 scoops into all your different containers.
A lot of people say that it's so hard to meal prep. It's so hard to meal prep, and it's hard. We all have busy lives. 100% we all have busy lives, but we can also either like cook stuff, like a ton of chicken breast at once, and then you have it all for the week, or rice and have it all for the week, or vegetables. But like you can also buy prepackaged things if you need to, like, and you can just throw those in the microwave and eat those too. Like if Sammy was out of town and she didn't make you a bunch of meals, like at least you had stuff that was like pre-made that was healthy and you could just throw in the microwave.
Yeah, so I think no matter what you do, no matter what you're starting, if there's a high barrier of entry, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be time consuming because it's your first time doing it. So you're not going to be efficient going through the process. But if you spend a few dollars and like on the containers, the containers we have are super cheap off Amazon Prime, and we just got, I think, probably like a dozen of them.
Yeah.
So they're all the same lids, all the same containers.
Right.
And it's like cooking up 20 chicken thighs on the barbecue, making a pot of rice, and then steaming a whole bag of broccoli.
Right.
None of it's difficult. It's just like setting that time aside 1 day a week. And it's like that one session of doing this huge portion of cooking is probably more difficult than making one meal.
Right.
But now if you add in the inconvenience of cooking 20 meals throughout the week versus this one.
And let's be honest, when you're tired and you come in from a long day or whatever, you're not going to want to make this nice, like, healthy meal. You're going to be like, I'm going to go for the quick option.
Exactly. And that, I fall into that trap too. If there's like a stack of bars or just whatever, I will eat nothing but bars all day. If that's my option, I don't have anything prepared, I will revert to those. Or like, we have these things that it's a nice little sweet track, but like they're like honey coated cashews with sesame seeds, and it's like, it's so easy. Like the serving size is like
4,
a palm full. But if you're in a rush and you're hungry and you're like, I need food now, you're going to scoop this just mitt worth of them, and then it's like, oh, there goes my diet for the whole day because of this one convenient scoop. So it's putting up blockers for stuff like that, lowering the barrier of entry of doing things the right way, and kind of just all those little changes throughout the day have what helped me.
Do you, like, is there food that you can't have in the house, right? Like for me, if there's chips and salsa in the house, like it's gone. I can't just have one. And so especially like during a certain time of the year when we're getting ready to compete, I'm like, we can't buy this, we can't buy this, we can't buy this.
Yeah.
Because
it'll be gone. I have so many of those things. The things I enjoy, and I think in moderation, they're perfectly fine. But I don't have that moderation bone, and so it just doesn't happen. And so the thing that recently came up is the Trader Joe's like almonds and cashews that are covered in sesame seeds and honey. And on their own, if you stick to the portion size, I'm sure they're perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, those, it's like after Sammy goes to bed, I'll stay up and watch an episode of something, and it's just, I'll just keep eating them, keep eating them. And it's like, oh, there's an added 1,000 calories for the day and how many grams of sugar. So yeah, stuff like that that's too convenient for my own good.
Right, that you can't have in there. When you were competing, like not say right before the games, right, where like everything's like super, but like throughout the year, did you have that same kind of mentality of like, okay, Sammy, don't buy this because I know I can't, or because I know that there was times when you got maybe too heavy, like you were talking about, and then you had to lean out a bit, or
so like there was one phase, it's probably a year or two ago, but leading into a competition, Sammy was finishing up her cookbook, and she knew that my two favorite cakes are cheesecake and carrot cake.
Okay.
And so for her cookbook, she was fine-tuning this cheesecake, carrot cake combo, like carrot cake, cheesecake.
Good combo.
And she was like dialing in this recipe, and she literally made a full cheesecake with carrot cake filling swirled in it every day for 5 days,
Sounds
getting
delicious.
this recipe dialed in. And I was finally like, you have to get these out of the house. As soon as you're done baking it, take it over to one of the neighbors.
Yeah.
I cannot come home because I can't say it's so good.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I just trained for 4 hours. I deserve
Yeah,
this.
I can smash it.
Exactly. And
I worked my butt off.
so stuff like that, or like, you know, just when she was cooking cookies all the time for the cookbook and dialing in that recipe, I was like, Sammy, you have to get these out of the house before I come home, or just like stop cooking them because I can't resist.
Right.
And you're 2 weeks out from regionals or the games, and you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be, like, just shaving off the last couple pounds so I'm extra sharp. I can't be eating these cookies.
Yeah, for sure.
But like another thing, like during my training, I didn't cut out all sweets. So like the one thing we did was, before, when Sammy makes a batch of cookies, you make a whole serving of the dough and you make 20 cookies at once.
Right.
And then you try to portion those out 2 at a time or whatever.
Right.
Never happens for me. Yeah. As soon as I have one, I'm like, I already had one, I might as well have 10.
Yeah.
And so what she started doing was making all the cookie dough, balling it up, and then putting the balls of cookie dough in the freezer. And so if I asked her, like, hey, do we have any cookies? She wouldn't have to make 20 of them. She would go make 2. Just put those 2 balls of cookie dough in the oven, and then I have 2 fresh cookies. I'm happy and not gorging.
Yeah, and I think that like you make a good point of like just moderation is fine. And I know that we have a lot of people who are doing the Hard Work Pays Off programming right now that they want to lean out and they want to get lighter, whether it's for gymnastics movements or they just want to be healthier. And I think they struggle with finding that balance of, well, I am feeling hungry and I am feeling tired while I'm doing this programming, but also at the same time understanding that you have to be in a deficit to lose fat mass, and you do have to deal with hunger, and you may have like low energy levels throughout certain points of the day, but figuring out how to make it so that when you're training you don't have those lows, or when you're training like you have enough calories around your training. And so I think, you know, obviously there was points in your career where you had to be in a deficit while training 5 to 6 hours a day, and kind of like, did you feel that was mentally you had a hard time with that, or was it just kind of like, this is what I have to do short term for long term success? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that was exactly it. You know, when I know what the end goal is and when it's going to arrive, I can suffer through anything. You know, like I always say with my CrossFit career, of like the light at the end of the tunnel. When I'm shooting for that, I can grind with the best of them. When there's no end in sight, that's when you start wondering, like, is this going to go on forever? Like, what am I doing this for? What's the end game here? And so, you know, it's kind of the same thing of like, if you want to lose weight, there's going to be moments of hunger where you're like, I want to eat, but keeping that end goal in mind of like, nope, here's the end point. That's what I'm striving for. In terms of doing the program, I would say there's the occasional day where it's like, all right, we're going heavy today. do not come into this day feeling weak or feeling unstable, lightheaded, whatever it is.
Right.
It's like, if your overall goal is to slim out, there's going to be moments of hunger.
Right.
But you can coordinate those with certain days and even timing during the day to make sure that when I'm hitting this piece of training, I'm being safe, I'm going to hit my numbers, I'm still going to see the progress while still achieving your overall goal.
Right. And I think that's an important thing that you said is like having a short-term goal keeps you more focused, right? And so it's just like if we're trying to hit PRs or anything else, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, like I'm gonna have to do these heavy squats so that I can get a PR, right? And so with doing the Hard Work Pays Off program, if you're in a deficit, like also remember that if you are doing your own nutrition, that you need to set those boundaries for yourself as well, or those goals of like the time I want to be done being in a deficit is here, right? So that mentally okay, I have to push through these 8 or 12 weeks of training. Like I might have to grind more. It's not going to be as fun. Maybe I won't feel as good as I would be if I was in a surplus, but my goal isn't to be in a surplus. My goal is to lose fat mass, right? And so I think it's just making sure that your goals align with how you're eating and then like your expectations as well. Because you can't expect that if you're in a big deficit because your goal is aesthetics to then come in the gym and just crush PRs after PRs after PRs. Like, right? We have to be realistic here.
Even when you're eating in a surplus,
that's
it's
far
not
and few between.
It's not a guarantee that you're hitting PRs every day.
Right.
But then I think what's also important is after that light at the end of the tunnel, making sure that you have a plan in place for something sustainable after that. You're not hitting your goal and going, and now I can eat whatever I want, and then just throwing everything away. It's like you have that transition phase of like, okay, I'm going from a deficit to now like a maintenance phase or something that's more sustainable.
Right. And that's it. And that's the other thing is like you have your maintenance phase, and then if you're one specific, and this is just going back to like having set specific goals, right? We all need goals. And I think that's something through the Hard Work Pays Off programming is the volume is there. If you want to, get leaner and shed fat mass and you care about aesthetics, you can get leaner. If you want to just maintain your weight, if you want to get stronger, like the volume is there to get stronger and to get fitter. And it's just dialing in your nutrition around that. And it's very individualized to each person, but you can still be in a deficit and eat enough before you train and then intra-workout carbs and then have your post-training meal and still make progress in whatever your specific goal is.
100%, yeah.
So, yeah, awesome. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with Matt and I, and we will see you guys on the next one. We out.
Pew pew.
Pew pew.